This week, focusing on the manager side of the survey. So you will have seen a week or so back, I released a version where I focused on what the candidates had to say. This week, I'll be going through the hiring manager survey. And just like the last one, I'd recommend bringing up a copy of the survey and having a look for yourself, either going through it as I'm talking or taking some time out to really have a good look through the document. There's loads of information in there. I won't cover everything today, but I'll get through some of the key points as we go. So if you are going to be flicking through yourself, go to page 46. That's where we're going to be starting. So the first section is Salesforce talent is in short supply. We asked Salesforce managers this year what they see as being the biggest challenges for their team in the next 12 months. And 36% of managers said that retention of their current team was going to be the biggest challenge. 27% said winning enough work to keep the team busy. So I guess that would have been consulting partners with that concern. 19% attracting experienced talent, and 18% said unsustainable salaries. So really interesting. 36% of managers are focusing on and concerned about the retention of their current team, which I think is very important, obviously, but we are definitely starting to see more vacancies in the market. So I think that's well assessed by the managers that have that as a concern, because I think more opportunities, obviously, for people to be applying for, more opportunities that are being taken to team members. So it's definitely wise that you're focusing in on retention, looking at what you can be doing to make sure your team are happy. 74% of Salesforce managers said that they find it challenging to find and hire Salesforce talent. Last year, 84% said the same. So it's down slightly, which I think is probably fair based on things like redundancies in the market over the last 12 months or so. I think if the way I'm seeing the market right now, if we ask the same thing again next year, it'll probably be back higher than the 74% that it is this year. 90% of consulting managers added to their team during 24-25, and 64% of end user managers made hires in the same period, which again was down last year. 84% of end users had hired into their Salesforce team in the last 12 months. So this year, the market's definitely been a bit softer in terms of vacancy numbers. 36% of consulting managers surveyed this year said that they're finding salary expectations being higher than the budget, and that's been their biggest challenge this year. I do think we are starting to see people looking to push up their salaries again. I think people accepted the salaries were quite flat over the last couple of years, and we've seen a few people that have stayed on the same salary for a while, people that are still paid well in comparison to other people in the market, but they've maybe been sat on the same salary for a while now and are looking for an increase. So it hasn't, I wouldn't say this has been a big challenge for us over the last couple of years. I think people have kind of accepted that they're not going to get the 20% pay rises. Maybe they were 20% plus, maybe they were through COVID. But it's interesting. Although I think salaries maybe might start creeping up again soon, we haven't necessarily seen, people looking for massive increases when they're moving. Interestingly, 27% of consulting practices that we surveyed said that Salesforce Industries experience was the most challenging skill to find and fill. Last year, they said technical architects were the hardest roles to fill. We've definitely seen a big spike in industries roles over the last, I would say, kind of 6 to 12 months. Lots of consulting partners have been building out their Salesforce Industries teams. We've seen some companies hiring, mass hiring for Omni Studio skills. A lot of that's being driven by government departments. So I'm not surprised that so many people have been struggling to find people with Omni Studio skills. The biggest challenge often in that space is that for the government department projects, you're looking for Australian citizens as well, or New Zealand citizens for roles in New Zealand. But a lot of the people that we speak to, especially developers, where we see big demand for Omni Studio skills, that the people that are citizens have their choice of roles, basically. And the people that aren't citizens, unfortunately, can't work on a lot of those projects. So that's why I think companies and especially consulting firms are finding it hard to find those Salesforce industry skills. Overall, across the board, Salesforce managers said that the Salesforce developer is the hardest to fill, which I think has been consistent for the last few years. But I would say that's that kind of goes back to that point I made before about a lot of the roles in the market are looking for Omni Studio skills, and therefore finding Salesforce developers with Omni Studio, but also Australian citizens, is very hard to find. 38% of Salesforce managers said that they'd experienced a role being unfilled for over 3 months due to a lack of available talent. That would probably surprise a lot of people in the market over the last couple of years, that there are still roles that are taking that long to fill. I've definitely seen it myself. There is still no easy role to fill in the Salesforce ecosystem. lots of people are still struggling to find the right people, the right skill sets. So 3 months is a long time, but if you are hiring for something quite specific, then yeah, it definitely can take a while to find the right person. 57% of Salesforce managers anticipate hiring in their teams in the next 12 months. Last year, 76% said they'd been expecting to hire. So yeah, obviously we're not expecting as much growth as we were last year, but I think the signs in the market are pretty positive. So it'll be interesting to see what percentage actually do hire over the next 12 months. All of the consulting practices that replied to the survey do expect to hire into their teams in 2025, which is probably expected. Most companies that responded are expecting between 1 to 5 new team members. Obviously, some of the bigger SIs, the global SIs, will be looking to make a huge number more than that. But I think across the board, we found that 9% of hiring managers in the consulting space expect to hire over 20. So that would be those bigger consulting firms that have 100 plus Salesforce professionals in the region. Moving to page 49, how much value do you place on relevant Salesforce experience when making hiring decisions? So Salesforce managers ranked culture fit as the most important factor when making hiring decisions, and location and certifications as being the least important factor. So good to see that location is still not as important as some of the other things. I think that is being tested by some hiring companies. We're definitely seeing people wanting people in the office more. I think certifications aren't necessarily seen as important by some hiring managers as maybe they have been in the past. Consulting practices obviously like to see them. Over the years, we've had many consulting companies that will only hire if people do have certs. I think that's still pretty common, or at least having an expectation that people will get certs very quickly. But culture fit is ranking most important. I feel I get tested with that a lot. I don't think hiring managers are going to hire someone they like if they don't have the right skill set. So I think obviously that they're not just hiring nice people, they want them to be able to add value and have a certain level of skill and experience as well. So yeah, it's not all about culture fit in my experience when companies are hiring, but that's often a reason people give for not hiring. So yeah, it's an interesting one. 55% of consulting managers specifically cited consulting experience as being the most important factor overall. It's pretty hard actually to break into the consulting space if you don't have consulting experience. So I'm not surprised with that stat. I think a lot of that a lot of consulting firms want to know that you can manage a client, you understand, and the nuances of managing a project. Obviously, is very different if you're on the end customer side delivering a project compared to being in the consulting side. And also there's real differences between like a small partner and a big global SI, where there's a lot more resources, a lot more support in a bigger company. Yeah, I think it can be difficult to make that shift between the two. So I'm not surprised that 55% of consulting managers see that as an important factor. 13% of end user managers considered relevant industry experience to be the most important factor. I see that more in like the spaces, things like finance. Really, finance is the big one, and some government departments like people with relevant industry experience. Obviously, now that there are industry clouds, I think that's what people will look for. But over the years, we've definitely placed people into industries they've never worked in before, and I think that will continue. Really, that the industry can be learned, just like the technology can be learned. But yeah, I have seen people be turned down for roles in the past because they don't have the relevant industry experience, but it's not all that common. 47% of Salesforce managers within end user companies said that they do not hire candidates from a non-Salesforce background into their team. I guess these would be roles like Salesforce admin, Salesforce BA, sometimes project managers, functional consultants, developers. And often because they're hiring for a specific need and they don't necessarily always have a big Salesforce team, they want people to come in and hit the ground running. So I think if someone is going to give someone a chance to learn Salesforce on the job, they often transition someone from another department or another team or skill set within the business. So it is quite common that end users, when they are hiring for Salesforce skills, they're not looking for someone to come in and learn. They're looking for someone to come in and hit the ground running. 53% of organizations manage their recruitment internally, either with an internal team or through the hiring manager alone. 7% only use external recruitment partners with no internal recruitment expertise or process. In my experience now, most companies above a certain size would have some sort of internal recruitment capacity, especially on the end user side. Obviously, in the consulting space, we're seeing a lot of internal recruiters working for consulting firms now, specializing in Salesforce recruitment. Salesforce teams and projects. Most end user organizations typically deliver Salesforce projects with a mix of an in-house team, partners, and contractors. So 31% said that. I guess no surprise. often, depending on the size of the company and the size of the project team, that structure will kind of fluctuate. But I guess smaller businesses might not have a huge internal Salesforce capability, so might give projects out to partners, hiring contractors. They might have one admin that supports with that, or they might do it themselves. So it really does vary, but having a mix of an in-house team and partners is common. Interesting to see that 31% also would put contractors in the mix. I think that the contract market is definitely growing again. We saw more contract roles through COVID than ever before. I think it dipped off a little bit over the last couple of years, but we are seeing more and more companies hiring contractors as well. 51% of end user managers deliver Salesforce projects with contractors to support their in-house team. So I guess where they're not using a partner, but they're bringing in a contractor or a couple of contractors to supplement the internal team. And 28% of end user managers have had to delay or cancel projects due to a lack of available Salesforce talent in the last 12 months, which is pretty crazy. And although that's down from 32% last year, if you actually think about the market over the last couple of years and the number of redundancies we've seen, the feeling that there's a lot of talent on the market, for managers to have to have stopped or cancelled projects because of lack of talent, that probably isn't what you would have been led to believe over the last couple of years. But it does go to show that the market is still crazy tight for good resources. 91% of consulting managers that we surveyed have experienced turnover in the last year, and last year only 56% of them had. So turnover within consulting teams has been up significantly from last year. The average utilization rate for team members has gone up this year. So 71 to 80% utilization for 45% of consulting practices. Last year, 12% of consulting practices said that they had utilization over 80%. This year, 27% of consulting practices are saying that their utilization rate has been up over 80%, which is very high. I guess there's a lot of happier consulting managers out there to see those figures. 96% of Salesforce managers reported having a preference for some degree of ongoing remote working within their teams. Only 4% therefore have a preference for their teams to consistently work from the office 5 days a week. We are seeing a few more conversations and hearing from clients that are looking for 5 days a week in the office. It definitely really does limit the talent pool. There just aren't that many people. There are some, but there aren't that many people that want to do 5 days per week in the office, which I completely understand. And I do try to educate clients on that. If you are looking for 5 days a week in the office, you are ruling out a very big percentage of the talent pool, and that's just a decision they have to make. 2 days per week working from the office is now the ideal balance identified by Salesforce managers. 38% said they prefer this, and then 29% said that they prefer 3 days a week in the office. I would say 2 to 3 is definitely the most common that we see. 13% of hiring managers still prefer a fully remote working model for their teams. 55% of end user managers are planning to add new products to their existing suite this year. Last year, 53% said they were, so good to see there's a little bit of growth there in terms of people that are looking to do or introduce new Salesforce projects. Most consulting managers are confident that Salesforce Data Cloud will be widely adopted by their clients, with 27% very confident and 27% somewhat confident. 42% of end user managers are somewhat confident that Salesforce Data Cloud aligns with the real needs of their business. 10% are very confident that it does. 45% of consulting managers are somewhat confident that Agentforce will be a game changer for their clients. And a further 27% are very confident that it will be. End user managers are less confident. Only 41% are confident that Agentforce will be a game changer for them. And only 6% of these are very confident. 64% of consulting managers that we asked reported that their consulting firm has actively built expertise and implemented new Salesforce technologies like Agentforce and Data Cloud. Only 9% haven't, due to waiting for more demand from their clients. Most end user managers consider the biggest challenge in adopting new Salesforce technologies is the cost of implementation and pricing, and 41% consider the biggest challenge to be a lack of clear ROI or proven business value. 9% of consulting managers claim to have Salesforce Cloud/product specialists within their team, whereas 64% only hire cross-cloud talent, which I think is pretty consistent with what I see. Obviously, you see the odd company hiring for like specialists in CPQ, field service, but I would say that most consulting firms are still looking for people with cross-cloud experience. That's where they kind of favor investing in building out their teams. 64% of consulting managers are finding that strong multi-cloud experience are the hardest skills to find when hiring Salesforce professionals. Again, yeah, definitely makes sense. People that have worked across lots of products are definitely in demand, and people that can turn their hand to a few different kind of projects are really what consulting firms want, because it means that they can keep the utilization up if they don't have projects in one area. Most organizations that we surveyed are poised to adopt and leverage AI, with 51% either somewhat or very ready. 31% of hiring managers believe that there'll be a major transformation of roles in the next 5 years. And last year, only 15% said there'll be a major transformation. So I think that's probably comes down to a lot of the marketing that we're seeing around AI. Obviously, AI has evolved a lot in the last 12 months. And so it's no surprise that there's been an increase in people that think there'll be a major transformation of roles. 71% believe that it will be positive. Most Salesforce managers expect an impact of AI to be somewhat positive on different Salesforce roles within their organization. 15% believe that it will be significantly positive, although last year 26% felt the same. So a bit of a decrease in people thinking it'll be a significant positive change. Only 2% of hiring managers believe that AI will negatively impact roles in the Salesforce community, which is good. I hope the other 98% are right. Most hiring managers, so 57%, believe there'll be a mix of both job displacement and job creation. And most end user managers said that their team is being encouraged to utilize AI tools in their day-to-day tasks. Looking forward, how do Salesforce managers feel about the current Salesforce talent pool in ANZ? So 45% feel that the quality is short, so quality of skills across the market is short. 12% feel like it's candidate short, not enough talent. Only 17% feel there is a good balance of experience, quality, and candidates. 12% feel it's experience short, and 14% weren't sure. 52% of end user managers feel that they're achieving a positive return on their Salesforce investment. Last year, that was 47% that felt they were getting a positive return. Unfortunately, 32% are unsure if they are or aren't. 9% of end user managers indicated that their company is considering moving away from Salesforce. Last year, 5% were considering moving away. So it's not great to see that more are considering that. Hopefully, some of the new technology coming out will persuade them to stay and continue investing in the platform. 82% of consulting managers we spoke to expect the Salesforce market in their area to be more buoyant in 2025 than 2024, which I think is a positive to end on. Yeah, I think there's some really promising stats in there. Obviously, a few concerning pieces of information as well. Like I said at the beginning, I really recommend you have a good read through the document yourself. You can find it on our website if you've not already got a copy. And hopefully, you'll find some interesting stats in there that give you some positivity about the market ahead. And please tune in for future episodes that are coming through.